Plenty of time for Pacquiao if he can find the right time.
Oh, and a beautiful combination.
Down goes Morales.
The fight is over.
I'm still like it, love it. Like when I rest for 4 years, like I really miss boxing. Like.
By the end of 2012, Manny Pacquiao stood at the most dangerous point of his career. For the first time in years, the conversation around him was no longer about greatness, dominance, or titles. Instead, it was filled with doubt. Critics said his speed was fading.
Pacquiao is a quick starter, and if I had to lean towards a fighter, I would say Pacquiao.
Analysts questioned whether age and accumulated damage had finally caught up with him. Fans who once believed he was untouchable began to wonder if his best days were already behind him. Then came a moment that made everything worse. Manny Pacquiao was knocked out cold, face first on the canvas. In one of the most shocking scenes boxing had ever witnessed, the image spread instantly across the world and changed the narrative overnight. For many fighters, that moment would mark the end. For Manny Pacquiao, it became the moment that would define who he truly was.
You know, I'm a fighter and my job is to fight, so I'm willing to fight.
Before doubt ever entered the conversation, Manny Pacquiao represented relentless greatness, rising from extreme poverty in the Philippines. He fought not just for himself, but for an entire nation that saw its own struggles reflected in his journey. His rise through the boxing world felt unstoppable, driven by speed, aggression, and an unmatched work ethic. Manny's fighting style was explosive and fearless. He attacked relentlessly, overwhelmed opponents with volume, and refused to back down even against larger men. This approach earned him championships across multiple weight divisions and global recognition as one of the most exciting fighters in boxing history. However, that same style demanded enormous physical sacrifice. Years of wars, punishment, and high-level competition slowly took their toll. The wins kept coming, but the cost was quietly accumulating beneath the surface.
Recovering from the knockout and give a good show, you know, side by side, like the young Manny Pacquiao. That is what I'm trying to show tonight.
After the knockout, Manny Pacquiao disappeared from the spotlight. The silence that followed was heavy and uncomfortable. Fans worried about his condition. Critics speculated openly about permanent decline. Analysts replayed the knockout repeatedly, pointing to age, wear, and vulnerability. Being knocked out cold doesn't just injure the body. It attacks a fighter's confidence. Fear can settle in quietly, affecting reactions, timing, and decision-making. Many fighters never fully recover from that psychological damage. Some return, but they hesitate. Others lose their instincts entirely. For Manny, the pressure was enormous. Every voice seemed to suggest the same thing: walk away before things get worse. At this stage of his career, retirement would have been understandable, but Manny Pacquiao was not built to accept endings decided by fear.
See, what he do is he try to smile, but he nervous.
Despite the doubts and warnings, Manny Pacquiao chose to return to the ring. This decision wasn't about money or fame. It was about identity. Manny believed that one devastating loss could not define decades of greatness and sacrifice. The risk, however, was undeniable. Another knockout could permanently damage his legacy. Every punch he took would be examined closely. Any sign of hesitation would confirm critics' worst fears. The margin for error was razor thin. Still, Manny moved forward. He accepted that fear existed, but refused to let it control him. His decision to return was not reckless. It was deliberate. Manny knew that if he was going to walk away one day, it would be on his own terms, not as a result of a single devastating moment. From the opening round, it became clear that this was not the same Manny Pacquiao fans had seen before. He was calmer, more measured, and far more controlled. Instead of rushing forward recklessly, he used angles, footwork, and timing to create opportunities. His punches were sharp but selective. His movement was efficient rather than explosive. This was not a decline. It was evolution. Manny had adjusted his style to match his experience and age. He no longer relied solely on speed and aggression. He relied on intelligence. This version of Manny Pacquiao showed maturity. He understood when to attack and when to disengage. The reckless urgency was gone, replaced by composure and awareness. It was the performance of a veteran who had learned from pain. As the fight progressed, Manny Pacquiao maintained complete control. Brandon Rios continued to push forward, but Manny refused to be drawn into unnecessary exchanges. He picked Rios apart with clean combinations, stepped out of danger, and reset calmly. There was no desperation in Manny's approach. He didn't chase a knockout. He didn't take reckless risks. Instead, he trusted the process and stayed disciplined for all 12 rounds. That discipline was the true statement of the fight. Winning a decision might not seem dramatic, but in this context, it was powerful. Manny proved he could dominate without sacrificing safety. He showed that intelligence could be just as effective as aggression. This control reassured fans and critics alike. When the final bell rang, the reaction was immediate and telling. Fans rose to their feet in applause. Commentators praised Manny's composure, discipline, and tactical brilliance. The fear that followed him after the knockout began to fade. This win wasn't celebrated for violence or spectacle. It was celebrated for resilience. Manny Pacquiao had returned and performed like a professional who understood exactly who he was. The narrative shifted once again. Manny was no longer viewed as damaged or declining. He was seen as evolved. The respect that defines true greatness was restored, not through knockout power, but through mental strength. This comeback fight mattered more than many championship wins because it forced Manny Pacquiao to confront the limits of his own identity as a fighter. For years, he had been defined by speed, ferocity, and relentless offense. When that formula failed him in devastating fashion, the loss threatened not just his record, but his place among the sport's all-time greats. Many fighters before him had reached this moment and faded. Pacquiao chose a different path. Rather than avoiding his darkest moment, he faced it directly. He studied his mistakes, accepted criticism, and committed himself to change. That willingness to evolve demonstrated the rare qualities that define true legends: resilience in the face of failure, adaptability under pressure, and the courage to abandon what once worked in favor of what was now necessary. This was not a simple return to form. It was a reinvention. Great fighters are not defined solely by how dominant they are at their peak. They are defined by how they respond when dominance is taken from them. Manny showed the world that greatness is not just about power or speed, but about humility, growth, and discipline. He learned to control distance, manage risk, and fight with patience and intelligence. In doing so, he proved that he was more than an explosive force. He was a complete fighter. After this comeback, Manny Pacquiao went on to add even more to his historic resume, winning additional world titles, defeating elite opponents, and competing at the highest level well into an age when most fighters are long retired. Yet without this pivotal moment, those later achievements would not carry the same weight. They were made meaningful because they came after adversity, not before it. This was the night Manny proved he could adapt rather than fade. He showed that experience could replace youth, that intelligence could replace recklessness, and that mastery could emerge where raw athleticism once ruled. The comeback reshaped how fans, analysts, and historians viewed his career, not as a brief era of brilliance, but as a sustained journey of evolution. Manny Pacquiao's legacy was never built solely on knockouts or belts. It was built on heart, sacrifice, and courage. The comeback fight against Brandon Rios was not flashy or violent, but it was deeply meaningful. It proved that a true champion can fall in the most brutal way and still rise again with dignity. Manny Pacquiao didn't allow one moment to define him. He chose to define himself. That is why this fight didn't just restart his career. It permanently defined his legacy.